Welcome to This Explainer. We're unpacking a true medical mystery today, and it unfolds literally like a terrifying thriller. But, every single detail is entirely real. We're looking at a crisis that completely baffled authorities, triggered global panic, and shined a huge spotlight on an invisible killer that's been hiding in the shadows for decades. Let's break down exactly what happened on a doomed cruise ship, the science behind the deadly pathogen responsible, and ultimately, what it means for our global future.
Okay, picture this. It's April 1st, 2026. A luxury cruise ship departs from Ushuaia, Argentina, heading out for the remote islands of the South Atlantic and Antarctica. On board, 150 passengers and crew from 23 different countries. For the first few days, everything is absolutely perfect. People are socializing, enjoying parties, taking in these breathtaking views. But here's the crazy part. Not a single person on board has any idea that their dream vacation is rapidly turning into an absolute nightmare.
Because this crisis escalated with terrifying speed, just days into the trip, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger develops a sudden fever, a headache, and some mild diarrhea. So he visits the ship's doctor. But days later, he's literally struggling to breathe. On April 11th, he tragically dies right there on the ship. The ship later docks in Africa, where his grieving wife disembarks with his body to fly home, but, and this is where it gets really scary, as she's waiting for her flight to Amsterdam, she suddenly collapses at the airport and dies on April 26th. Meanwhile, back on the ship, the sickness is spreading. A German woman falls ill on April 28th and dies just 4 days later. One by one, passengers are dying, and nobody has a clue why.
Finally, on May 2nd, the World Health Organization is alerted. They run their tests, and the terrifying diagnosis comes back: it's hantavirus. Now, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill bug. Hantavirus is actually a family of deadly viruses transmitted by rodents. And here is the most chilling part of the whole shebang. There is no FDA or WHO-approved vaccine. Zero. There is no proven antiviral cure either. If you get infected, doctors can basically only provide supportive care. The actual fight for your life, that is entirely up to your own immune system.
And let me tell you, if your immune system has to fight this, the odds are pretty horrifying. This pathogen carries a massive mortality rate of up to 50%. Just let that sink in for a second. It has the potential to kill half of the people it infects. So suddenly, the world realizes that a ship carrying a highly lethal, completely incurable virus is stranded in the middle of the ocean. And, as you might guess, naturally, no country wants to let them dock.
What's really fascinating, fascinating and terrifying really, is how this virus operates almost like two entirely different killers depending on geography. You see, different rodents carry different strains of hantavirus. Over in Asia and Europe, it primarily causes HFRS. That's a condition that attacks the kidneys and causes internal bleeding. But over in the Americas, it causes HPS. This variant aggressively attacks the respiratory system, basically filling the lungs with fluid until the victim tragically suffocates. And unfortunately, that suffocating symptom is exactly what the passengers on our ghost ship were experiencing.
A history of deadly outbreaks. So, to understand how we got here, we need to take a quick look backward. This isn't some brand new threat cooked up in a lab yesterday. It's actually been baffling scientists for over 70 years. Let's trace its historical footprint. Modern medicine first encountered this virus during the Korean War in the 1950s. Over 3,000 American soldiers suddenly fell ill with fever and kidney failure, and about 15% of them died. Doctors were completely stumped. Many actually suspected it was some kind of covert chemical weapon. It took 30 long years before a South Korean virologist, Dr. Ho Wong Lee, finally isolated the virus from rodents in the 1980s, naming it after the local Hantan River. Fast forward a bit, and the most dramatic outbreak hit in 1993. Young, incredibly healthy members of the Navajo tribe in the American Southwest just began dropping dead from sudden lung fluid, with an initial mortality rate of a staggering 75%.
Now, scientists in 1993 were completely baffled by this, but it turns out the Navajo tribal elders actually held the key to the mystery. They brilliantly illustrated this incredible connection between the environment and the disease. It goes like this. An El Niño weather pattern brought heavy rains. This led to a massive overproduction of pinyon pine nuts. The local mice, they gorge on this all-you-can-eat buffet, causing their population to just absolutely explode, and more mice means an incredibly high risk of the virus spilling over into humans. It's basically a perfect, deadly ecological storm.
Let's look at hantavirus in India.
For the longest time, there was this widespread assumption in the medical community that hantavirus simply did not exist in India. But a multi-institutional study conducted between 2005 and 2008 down in the Vellore district of Tamil Nadu completely shattered that myth. Researchers found 28 confirmed cases among kidney patients, warehouse workers, and the Irula rat-catching tribe. And even more shockingly, when they tested the general population, they found that 4% already had hantavirus-specific antibodies. That means the virus had been quietly infecting people in India for years, especially those living or working closely with rodents.
Now for the real shocker, the human-to-human twist.
Let's bring our focus back to that doomed cruise ship, because there's a huge piece of the puzzle still missing here. If hantavirus spreads from mice to humans, how on earth was it spreading from passenger to passenger on a luxury ship? Well, that brings us to a terrifying evolutionary twist. The answer lies in a specific strain called the Andes virus, which was first discovered in southern Argentina in 1996. Out of the entire global family of hantaviruses, the Andes strain is the only one documented to have a very dangerous superpower, human-to-human transmission. It just breaks all the rules. The scientists in Argentina also noticed that some infected individuals can act as super spreaders, passing the virus to multiple people. It spreads through prolonged, close physical contact or bodily fluids, think sharing a bed or closely caring for a sick loved one.
But the absolute crucial piece of data to understand here is this: 1 day. The transmission window for this specific strain is incredibly short. An infected person is generally only contagious for a single day, right at the onset of their illness. So, with all that in mind, we can finally solve the ghost ship mystery. In March 2026, right before boarding the ship, our Dutch couple went on a bird-watching tour in Ushuaia. During this tour, they ended up at a landfill that happened to be heavily infested with rats. Because that transmission window was only about 1 day, if they had boarded the ship a few days later, the whole tragedy might have been avoided. But nope, they boarded exactly during that contagious window, bringing the Andes strain straight to their fellow passengers. By the time Spain finally allowed the ship to dock in Tenerife on May 10th, the damage was completely done. 10 total cases, 3 dead, and multiple people evacuated in critical condition.
Which brings us to the big question. Is this the next pandemic?
Naturally, hearing about an incurable virus spreading between humans on a ship brings up everyone's absolute worst fear. Is this isolated ghost ship incident the spark for our next global pandemic? Are we looking at another global lockdown? Well, the short answer is no, and the WHO considers the global risk to be incredibly low. Here's exactly why. Unlike COVID-19 or the flu, which are airborne and highly contagious, hantavirus requires very close physical contact. Add to that the transmission window we just talked about. COVID-19 required 14-day quarantines because patients were contagious for long periods. Hantavirus is contagious for literally just 1 day. If an infected person simply isolates for a couple of days, the chain of transmission is effectively broken.
Prevention is the best cure.
Now, while a global pandemic is highly unlikely, on an individual level, a 50% mortality rate means this is a threat you absolutely must take seriously. Especially because meteorologists are predicting a massive El Niño weather pattern this year. And as we learned earlier, that means more rain, more food, more mice, and more virus. Since there is no medical cure, your defense has to be entirely proactive. First up, seal up any gaps in your house. If rodents can't get in, they can't bring the virus to you. If you're cleaning out a dusty storage room, a go-down, or any closed space, do not breathe in the dust. Seriously, put on an N95 mask and wear some gloves. Practice basic hygiene, never leave food out, dispose of your garbage securely, and if you do see rodent droppings, exercise extreme caution. Don't sweep them up dry because that just kicks the virus right into the air. Wet them down with a disinfectant first.
The story of the Ushuaia cruise ship is a pretty dark reminder of how fragile our health can be when humans brush up against untamed nature. For decades, hantavirus has been quietly infecting people around the globe, slipping under the radar until sudden, tragic outbreaks grab the headlines. But listen, panic is never the answer. Knowledge completely removes the need for fear. Without a vaccine or cure, your greatest weapons are simply awareness and basic prevention.
We've unraveled the mystery of the ghost ship in our analysis today, tracing a deadly, invisible killer all the way from the battlefields of Korea to the remote islands of the Atlantic. It really proves that nature is always evolving, always finding new ways to test our defenses. The medical community contained this localized threat, but it leaves us looking out at the horizon. We survived the ghost ship, but are we truly prepared for nature's next silent killer? Keep asking questions, keep learning, and as always, stay curious.